Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider for Clutch Points. And today on the show, we will be talking about cores, not Apple cores, not the core that you work out, but the Lakers core, and a debate internally about said core. Raj, you are the guest tonight on this fine Thursday evening. You are joining the show with the benefit of not having watched any of that Minnesota OKC game. So shouts to you, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I did listen to some of it. When I looked at the score, I think they were up 20 by the mid first quarter, and I thought there's just no reason to rush home and watch that game. But before we get into Lakers stuff, Anthony, I tweeted something out. I want your opinion on it. I think there's a world where Alex Caruso wins Finals MVP. Am I crazy? I think that's a real universe that can happen.
I think the league is pretty in on, and it feels like one of those years where we just kind of fully anoint the Thunder. And like the centerpiece of the Thunder right now from a basketball perspective is Shea. And I also don't think Indiana has anybody who can slow him down even a little bit. So I think he's going to go nuts. And we're going to I think it's OKC in like 3 against Indiana. I'm rooting against it, but I just think like it's a really bad matchup that OKC has plenty of options to just kind of bug Hallie over the course of the series. And
what did the Knicks though? I mean, the Knicks have the 2 best on-ball wings in the league, supposedly.
Yeah, but I think in this case, this is one of those spots where like the Knicks have a lot of length. And I saw I forget who was, I think it was Jason who made this point of like, it's kind of wild how little Jaden McDaniels has mattered in this series against Shea. And for a long time, the thought was that longer athletes could basically use their length to bother smaller players. But now, that foot speed really matters. And with how physical they're allowing these guys to be, the Lou Dorts, the Alex Carusos, the Kason Wallaces, like those kind of shorter, shiftier guards who can hand check, I think have more of an advantage going into that matchup than it. Look, I'm not disagreeing. Those wings that you're talking about are excellent in New York, but I think it's a different kind of wing, and I think this kind of wing will be better suited for Hallie.
Yeah, maybe the Caruso thing, if you just walk with me, was, Jalen Williams, J-Dub can have a rough shooting night. Shea maybe has a rough shooting night, and Caruso has an awesome series against Halliburton. A lot of things have to go right to make that happen. But I think people are sleeping on Indiana. I think this is a very good basketball team that has shown against the top teams in the league. Like, we can run you off the floor. And I think the wrinkle of having Miles Turner, who's, another Lakers sought after guy, but Miles Turner being the spacing 5, I think just changes the whole dynamic of how OKC will be able to defend. And again, Neesmith, Nembhard, Obi Toppin's athleticism, they just come at you in waves just like OKC does. I'm hoping, maybe this is just me like being a basketball dreamer, but I think this is gonna be a really fun series. A lot of people are picking OKC in 4 and 5. I think this is gonna be a really fun, long series. These are the 2 best teams in the league, at least left from the carnage of the injuries. I'm higher on Indiana than maybe the normal population, but I think it's gonna be a fun series. Anthony Halliburton has ascended into an insane point guard position. That floor game he had the other day was amazing. And they have guys to throw at Shea. They have guys to throw at J-Dub, and these dudes are not scared. Neesmith will come out and fire. He does not care. And so I think it's a fun chess match. But yeah. But that'd be painful, right? A Caruso Finals MVP. That's a painful.
I just don't see like. So the path you're talking about is like locking up Halliburton.
Yes.
And
J-Dub and
Shea isn't very good, I guess, in this scenario.
Yes, he has rough shooting nights, which he's prone to have, right? Even
Mhm.
in this series, he's had tough shooting nights against Denver specifically. He had like 2 or 3 games where he really could not, throw it in the ocean. Obviously, I'm not betting on that. I don't bet anyway, but if I was, I wouldn't bet on that to happen. It's a tiny universe, which in and of itself,
I guess it,
is
yeah,
insane, is
yeah.
absurd. So
I mean, if that's basically like the bar we're clearing here, is that like it can happen, like okay, I guess, yeah. I just think it's like I think we're heading toward like I want to believe you, Raj, and I want to
okay,
believe you. I think it'll be 3 really, really fun games for a little
okay,
while, but I
okay,
just think the the caliber of team that Indiana is going from to like going from playing in the East or playing those teams in the East to OKC here, it's kind of like uh you're not a college football guy, um but like for a really long time you would have these like Pac-12 teams that looked really bleeping good. And
okay,
one in particular, right, was Oregon, who year in, year out was this really, really good team in the regular season. And they played this really thrilling brand of football. They were smaller, they spread you out, and then they just absolutely, killed you with exterior runs, and then a smart passing game, and then the occasional bomb to the D'Anthony Thomases of the world, I believe was what it was. And you had produced some pros, right? Marcus Mariota has had a nice long NFL career. Obviously, dude there in San Diego comes to mind. But every single time, Raj, they would get into these playoff games or bowl games with the national championship on the line, and they would play against some SEC team that was big and was spent the entire year, sharpening iron on iron in the SEC. And I hate saying this because I always thought that the Pac-12 was kind of underrated, and that like it took less for an SEC team to get those opportunities than it took for a Pac-12 team. But it's kind of hard to argue with like the number of times that those SEC teams would just smother Oregon, and it was just a different level of football. And I think that's essentially what we're going to see here with Indiana going from the East to the West. Is they played a Boston team that Kristaps Porzingis was never quite right, and no, did they even play Boston? No, the Knicks beat them. So they never even played Boston. They beat a Milwaukee team that's pretty meh. The Knicks,
injured, yeah,
like, they're also like I think they're topping out in the way that Tibbs teams tend to top out eventually in the playoffs. And this OKC team that we're watching here, and by the way, we talked about this all year, Raj, how they profiled like a juggernaut. They profiled like
sure.
a freaking buzzsaw. And what they're doing to the Minnesota Timberwolves is what would happen if an actual Timberwolf took on a buzzsaw. Like
Sure.
it would not go very well.
For sure. I guess I'm not trying to push up Indiana too much, but they destroyed another buzzsaw, right? The Cavs won 64 games. They went in game one and punched them in the mouth. Donovan Mitchell isn't Shea, but he's of that ilk of a guy who can get a basket anytime. And they did a fantastic job, I thought, on him. Obviously, you play who's in front of you, so they didn't have Boston in their scheduling. But I mean, the Knicks were Anthony. The Knicks are healthy. They have an insane payroll. They went and got all the defensive wings that everyone wants. Karl Anthony Towns at center, who's making whatever he is. Jalen Brunson was the clutch player of the year, or whatever it was. Awesome playoffs as well. And they're up 3-1. Like, this is a good Knicks team, in my opinion. Like, a solid Knicks team that could have won the title. Maybe Tibbs does some things differently, but Rick Carlisle has coached a hell of a series as well. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm dreaming. I think this is more of I still think I would pick OKC to win. I have them, I think, in 6 in that series, but I still think those games are a little bit closer. I don't think they run away and sweep or win that in 5. So hoping for a long series. Just the basketball purist in me, I guess. I'm hoping for a fun NBA Finals. The last one at least was not was. I think Boston was up 3-0 last year, so it's
Yeah.
not very entertaining. So that's all I ask. Give me entertaining finals.
I would rather it be nice and short so we can get right to the offseason. Like we're so close. We're right there, Raj. We are right there to like getting back to, more seriously talking about the Lakers and stuff. I'm holding up this thing with like, the show and this community by like writing as this game is going on. Hey guys, it's really difficult. I don't know if the Lakers are actually going to trade their core. I don't know.
Right.
We'll see. To try to get people into the tent.
I'm like, oh, look at Halliburton. You're like, no, Raj, we got bigger problems over here.
No, we can't get him.
I don't know. Luka's here now. Can't really say that.
Trade. Who says no? Luka for Halliburton.
Stop it.
On that note, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. Please hit that share button. If you guys are listening to this on Twitter, I guess, head on over to youtube.com/@LakersLounge to find the show there. If you guys are listening to this in the morning via podcast, hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your pods, preferably on Odyssey. Somebody said, hell no to subscribing. What the hell, Jamar? I'm kidding. I don't think that's what he's saying. Hell no to. But today on the show, we're going to be talking about again this notion. So I wrote yesterday about the bigs and the Lakers' pursuit of bigs, and I kind of essentially like this week want to set the table now that we are probably at most 8 or 9 games away from the start of the NBA offseason. And you're
not excited for the California Classic, Anthony? That starts in a week and a half. The summer league that starts in
a week and a half.
Oh no, in a month and a half.
Yeah. I mean, a lot has to happen before we get to that point. But totally, really excited. But yeah, so yesterday I wrote and reported on the center situation and the Lakers' pursuit of a center, and how it is very, very widely known that the Lakers need at least a center, if not multiple centers. So, today I wanted to pass along the other very pervasive theme that I have sensed in my conversations, and that is that internally there is a very real debate about the notion of the Lakers core, right? To me, the Lakers core, Raj, moving forward is Luka Doncic. That's it. Like if you're talking about core players, to me it's just Luka. It's the beginning of the Luka era, and I'm more and more kind of arriving at wipe the books clean, line up whatever picks you have to, line up whatever assets you have to go out and get him a second best player for the duration of his tenure in LA, or at least a good chunk of it, who fits really, really well with him. And I don't see any other player on the Lakers right now who I can realistically see playing long term, right? Because otherwise, if it was like prime LeBron, I'd be like, yeah, that guy fits pretty well with Luka, but he's not, right? We're probably looking at a couple more years of LeBron. So outside of Luka, I just see everybody else as people. I see everybody else as guys, and everybody to me should be considered movable. The problem is, based on what teams that have been having conversations with the Lakers have basically said, is they do very much not see it that way with Austin, and that the Lakers are very torn on Rui, that there are some people in the Lakers organization who feel somewhat similarly about Rui as they do about Austin. So I think there's some other stuff going on there. We'll talk about that whenever we get to it. But I wanted to start with that notion, Raj, of what is the Lakers core do?
Yeah, so I think if you look around the league, right, like a core doesn't have to just be star players. Like a core to me are players that have been in your system, have been in your organization, that you've either grown and developed or have turned into, productive players. Like you look at OKC, their core is not just Shea, it's Shea, J-Dub, Chet, Lou Dort, and Caruso, right? That's probably their core. Everyone else outside of that is probably movable, but from their perspective, that's their core. Look, the other top teams, Boston as well. Derek White, to me, is in their core. Obviously, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, but to me, that's their three core. Indiana with Halliburton, Miles Turner is now, I think, just embedded into that. Neesmith's another guy, Nemhard. So when I look at the Lakers and now you pan to them, to me, it's Luka, and then obviously there's a gap there because that's the most important core piece. But I think Austin's a part of that, and then after that, I would like I think it's understandable for people to look at Rui and go, and that's the guy they've developed. That's the guy that they see as like an organizational win to have him. But I don't look at him in terms of the same tier as Austin. But I could see it where the Lakers see him in that tier as well, and they just don't have a lot of stuff. excuse me, to trade. So when you look at in terms of who they're giving up, they have to kind of value their players, right? So when I see it as who's in their core, I don't know. To me, it's Luka, Austin, obviously LeBron, where however long he's here, and from there, it's a huge gap. To me, that's the core. Maybe Jordan Goodwin, who knows? But that's the core right now to me.
Yeah, the issue is I think there's a kind of team that you need to build around Luka, and I think Rui fits into that concept. Arguably, potentially, Raj, better than Reaves does.
Yeah.
I'm not. Oof, man, that's a tough question. Like that's something that just hit me while we've been talking here. Who fits better into like a Luka system between Austin and Rui?
I would still go the better player in Austin. I think he fits better just because he's the better player. And look, Rui's not a perfect fit either, right? He's a slow-footed dude on the perimeter. Doesn't really help athletically the way that Luka would probably need. It's not a perfect fit either, but he is in their top in terms of talent for sure.
But that's kind of where I like that point there, Raj, that you made. However indirectly, is it? But that's where I stand. Is that like I don't see anybody on the Lakers right now where I'm like, that's a perfect Luka fit.
Sure.
And Austin's about to triple what he's making. And Rui is about to get a pay raise too. And you mentioned it a second ago, how few assets that the Lakers have to work with here to be able to build that perfect Luka team. And to me, it's like, I would rather again, I wouldn't go so like, to be absolutely clear. Adam asks a question earlier. Rui is a good player. Why get rid of good players? If you had 15, you would win the chip. Get rid of Gabe. He's not a good player. To be absolutely clear, I'm not saying like get Austin out of here, get Rui out of here. Like you have to get back. Sure. I would say very good starters for both of them because that's what they are. Like wherever Rui goes, he'll be a very good starter, and wherever Austin winds up, he'll be a very good starter. And by the way, there's a really good chance if the Lakers do trade him. I saw Aaron, Austin's agent, fired off a tweet talking about like, get him out of the trade machine for your backup centers. One, Aaron, nobody is making that point. Two, the numbers that he put up, he could very well go to some other team next year, put up astounding numbers, and they'll have the last laugh there. But he would, there's a world where Austin doesn't put up those numbers with the Lakers again next year. And if that happens, the most valuable trade asset that the Lakers have becomes less valuable at the deadline. There's a world where the Lakers don't trade him, and then some team absolutely knocks his socks off with some insane offer, and the Lakers lose him for nothing. And by the way, like that used to be the concern with D'Angelo Russell. No team was ever going to knock off D'Angelo Russell's socks with an offer. But Austin is a very talented player. We have seen what he can do when he has primary creator responsibilities. We have seen what he did even after Luka showed up. So there's proof of concept there as well. Some team might say, "Hey, we can't get a player like this entering his prime in free agency. Let's just go out and make a stupid offer to him." And at the very least, make it so that the Lakers have to now really, really think about paying Austin 40 something million bucks, where, that's a lose-lose situation. You either lose Austin for nothing, or you now have to pay Austin $40 million when you just had him at 14 going into next year.
Yeah, again, I think that's a bridge you cross when that bridge arrives, and hopefully that's the whole point of having the player in house, that you guys understand each other, right? There should be conversations that are ongoing. They shouldn't just jump at you next summer like, oh my God, Austin's about to leave. But also, like, to your point, Anthony, about like Rui and Austin not being great fits around Luka. I also think some of this you have to play the cards you have, right? And Boston could have easily went, Jaylen Brown's not a great fit next to Jason Tatum. Trade him.
Yeah.
And the amount of people who said they should trade him, right? That's not a perfect fit either. These are two on-ball wings that like to handle the ball, but those guys, they found a team that fit around them. Luka and Kyrie isn't it's an amazing offensive basketball fit, but defensively there are a lot of concerns. Both of them are two guards that get picked on. They went out and got the talent and then said, let's fit the roster around those two. What do those two need? Athletes, they need size, they need big man, and they went and did that.
But you're putting Austin in Kyrie's class.
No, I'm just saying, like, there's no perfect team build is what I'm saying. You have to kind of work with the team you have. You can't just keep starting from scratch, and that's where you would hope you build on something from these last few years. And to me, that's what Austin is. Austin's kind of the representation of what you built these last few years in terms of what you've developed. I think what you've reported in terms of the split on the core, I think Rui is also seen as an organizational win. Kendrick Nunn in 2 seconds for Rui Hachimura, who's extended, started playoff games, played well. I could see why the Lakers go, all right, let's try to build with these three instead of, dumping them, which, there's some tough decisions to be made, but I could see why that's a conversation, at least going into next season. That's 3 of your 5 players that were playable in a playoff rotation. Like, taking one of those out for someone else really doesn't move the needle as much in terms of what you get in return. So, but
I will say two things here that I honestly should have prefaced this conversation with is this is lying season. We are in lying season, and there's a lot of posturing, and like there was no world in which I would report Lakers hellbent on trading Rui Hachimura and Austin Reaves. That's not that nobody's ever going to hear that, even if that's how the Lakers actually felt, which it isn't, to be absolutely clear, but still. So that needs to be mentioned. The other thing too is you mentioned how, organizational wins and that stuff. The hope would be, Raj, when you extend Pelinka the way that the Lakers did, he wouldn't have to have a, what's the thing where you move the beads, the math thing that you use to move the beads. Oh my gosh. Anyway, but
like a reward system kind of thing.
Yeah, but there's an actual tool that people use to do math, and you move beads across this string. Somebody in the chat help me out. But anyway, like you shouldn't abacus. Thank you, Lobos.
Oh, an abacus. Okay.
Yeah. Like Rob shouldn't need a Robacus, right? He shouldn't need something like that to be able to go to Genie and be like, hey, don't fire me. Look at these wins I have. That's never going to happen, for one thing. And with Rob being one of the safest people in the sport, you would hope that it would just be, all right, that was a good organizational win. Let's compound that win. Let's turn Rui into an even better win. Let's turn Austin into an even better win that fits better with Luka. Whereas the problem that you can sometimes run into is, hey, here's this win here, but we're actually going to turn it into a loss because we're so reluctant to move them.
Sure. I think that's the case as well. And there needs to be some sensitivity in terms of who you're trading him for. I just mean they're not going to dump Rui, right? It's just that's
But
not
nobody's saying
that.
that.
Sure. I'm like, I've seen Rui in some trades where I'm like, that they're probably not doing that. Or Austin in some trades where like, there's no way that they do that either. There's going to be some decisions that's going to have to be made. I think like this is going to be a tough summer in terms of the amount of players that they're probably going to have to move to bring in the requisite talent. And I do think like obviously I've said that there's ways you have to kind of play with the cards you're dealt. But when you get a Luka card, there's also like a deck that you have to build that makes sense as well, right? In terms of you need a big man. Like that's clear. That is obvious. There is no going around that. That was clear from the start. And so I think that'll be a part of it as well. But yeah, I can see where they're looking at it from like Rui and Austin have been a part of our culture for the last
But
three, four
the
years.
culture has lost 12 of their last 14 playoff games.
Yeah, but that's like before Luca, right? So it's kind
Yeah,
of
but so long as you're hog tying Luka to this core, it's hard to separate them.
sure. Yeah. But I'm saying what they're saying is these have been productive role players for us in a consistent time. And I can see why there's a little bit more attachment to them where they might be valued more for the Lakers rather than other teams, right? Like that it just there's a inherent value when it's your guy that you've been building up versus a guy you're trading for. But look, man, I think Rui's gonna have like he's gonna be in a lot of trades. I doubt he'll be the stickling point for something. But Austin, I can see I just we did the full Austin conversation already, I think last week. I just
Yeah.
can't see Austin getting moved. There's just no deal to me that I see them kind of putting him in for other than, a superstar deal. But I'd be shocked if Rui's kind of in that tier as well. But you're saying some people see him in that tier on the team.
Well, there's some other stuff going on there. I didn't include this in the piece because it's kind of conjecture on the part of other people around the league. But there are enough people at this point, either close to the Lakers or around the league, who are saying like, you got to think of this like a business too. Tim Harris has a very loud voice in the Lakers organization.
Sure.
He is directly responsible for the business operations aspect of it. And, you have an already very popular player in Rui. He's especially popular from what I've heard with, with Jeannie and with Linda and with Kurt also to a degree, because he wears 28, right? And the reasons behind him wearing 28, one, the 2 representing Gianna, 8 representing Kobe. There's a lot of stuff here that I could have, and I legitimately went back and forth on including it in the piece. I think it's better served for a podcast because it's a lot fuzzier than actual reporting here. But to me, if that's a factor in the Rui conversation at all, then the Lakers are screwed. Like it's a factor in all of these things, and the Japanese market has been very, very good to the Dodgers, and they've been very, very good to the Lakers while Rui's been there. But still, like the basketball has to trump it, and
Sure.
I'm not saying that it doesn't. I just think it's a factor, and I don't want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, business is a factor in every decision,
Yeah,
right? Money is a factor in
totally
every
fair.
decision, no matter what it is. So I'm sure this has some play. I'd be surprised if that impacts any type of talent trade. I'm sure there is some, connection to Rui in terms of what the Japanese kind of market, but I'd be surprised if that really lends towards impacts any trade. And look, he's one of the few guys that actually played well in the playoffs, had
Yep.
shot very well. I would still
On a
like to
bum
go.
knee too.
Yeah, I just wrote about him for Silver Screen Roll in terms of like him as a small ball 5, Anthony. And Rui, even he's one of the few, like Rui's not going to complain, but you go and listen to his final presser, and he's like, they had me playing small ball 5 all year, and it was rough. But and so like I would love to see him next to rotational big man, but yeah, I'd be shocked if that really impacts any type of trade scenario. I don't put him in the same tier as Austin, and I doubt the Lakers do as well.
Yeah, I don't think he's in the same tier, but I think that there's pushback there where he's held higher and higher regard than I think Twitter kind of realizes. Um, yeah, the other part of this too, Raj, is with Rui specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he plays essentially, or he defends essentially the same position that Luka does, that Dorian does, that LeBron does.
Yeah.
And uh so long as that remains the case, because Dorian is in charge of his own future with the Lakers, he has that player option. LeBron, same thing. He has a player option and a no trade clause. So those two guys aren't going anywhere. You obviously aren't trading Luka.
Mm-hmm.
So if you enter another season with you have LeBron making, what is it? It's going to be around 55 or so, 57 maybe. You'll have Luka in that same range as well. You'll
Mm-hmm.
have Rui in that 18 to 20 range. You'll have Dorian probably in that 17 or so range. I'm not the best at math, Raj, but having 80% of your cap devoted to the same position isn't
Yeah.
wise.
Sure, there needs to be some balance there. They need to kind of fill him out for an athletic wing or Dorian out for an athletic wing or whatever it is. There needs to be some balance there. But again, like getting even return or trade return, you've mentioned it before as well. I think the Lakers have one first round pick to play with this
Yep.
summer to attach to salaries. They have some swaps as well in the 55th pick, but getting even return is difficult. It just obviously that's Rob Pelinka's whole job, but again, that's why I could see a world where Rui's on the team, come September, October. But I'm sure he's the first one that they float in all these deals, him along with all the salary that can
Yeah.
get filled in. I didn't realize Vando signed to like 2028 or 9 or something. I was not I was not aware of that. It was that long of a contract. Um,
You should have seen. I remember specifically looking this up
yeah,
because I was just kind of on the trade machine, or I was like, it was while the Lakers were playing in the playoffs, and I was just kind of looking at their books and stuff because it looked like we're gonna have to start having these conversations here soon.
yeah,
And I was looking at their books, and I went on Spotrac where you have the option to see like the Lakers books 5 years in advance, or for the next
yeah.
5 years. And I saw that Vando was on their books for 3 of the next 5 years.
It's so insane.
And I was like on my laptop, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And Jen's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Vando."
I think he has like a player option at the end of that. It's just
Yeah,
it's insane.
it's the worst contract in the sport, damn near. And and we still don't know what he's good at on offense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw that you wrote about Vando for
Yes.
Silver Screen, and some of the stats on there were just mind numbing. And I don't
20
know which
20% in the
is an
paint.
uglier stat, his contract or his shooting percentage. I can't figure it out.
20% shooting in the paint. Like obviously that's not, and he shot 60% on layups and dunks. It's just unreal the season he had. For that piece, I was going back, Anthony. It's crazy how quickly we've gone past this because one of the games he played was the Denver game, which was on the road. That was like Luka's coming out party, right? Kind of his first
Yeah.
real game. And like a few months later, we are already way past the honeymoon era has kind of, from what I kind of can feel online in terms of the conversation around the Lakers. The Luka honeymoon ended pretty pretty quickly. I don't know if that's how actual honeymoons like. Do they end that quickly, or like I don't know how long they actually last? But
Well, no, like, well, mine was different because Jen and I had been together for so long, but no, like, it's funny. You have actual post-wedding honeymoons.
right, where you go on a trip or something
Yeah,
like
we
that.
have all that, and
Yeah,
that does end pretty abruptly. It's, you have the high of the wedding,
right.
and then you go to some tropical place probably, or some beautiful place,
Yeah,
and it is just you and your significant other, and nobody else matters.
Right.
You eat all the best food, you drink all the best drink, you sleep whenever you want to sleep, you do whatever whenever, and then you come back to the real world and you're like, like the first time you walked into the house, you're like, all right, this is real now.
Right.
Like if we break up, paperwork has to be involved. So like in that sense, honeymoons do end rather abruptly, but like you also have what's called honeymoon periods, and I think that's kind of more what you're talking about here, where a couple just gets together and there are no warts. It's not that you don't even see them, it's that they aren't even there. Like it doesn't matter, whatever red flags. Sure, yeah, he showed up to pick me up for our first date with a Domino's sign on top of his car. Totally normal at 45 years old. But like, and then eventually, like those, you do start to notice the warts, and you do start to see. So that does happen a little bit more gradually, so long as the red flags aren't too red. But yeah, the actual post wedding honeymoon, that does end very quickly, because it is a rude awakening when you get home and you're like, all right, oh, I don't remember you snoring in Bora Bora. That's weird.
Right. Well, and relating this to the Lakers, I was going back and watching the Denver game. I was like, was Luka this big? Like when I was watching him, during that time, was he like this? Was he moving like this? And you go watch him. Like I implore fans to go watch him in February. Like the way he was running was like a guy who should not be on a basketball court. But you just got Luka Doncic. The honeymoon period was fresh and new. But that is an interesting kind of phenomenon to me, Anthony, is how quickly that has moved to, all right, we got to win tomorrow. Like tomorrow, the roster has to be championship level versus 3 months ago. It was, well, now the Lakers have a 10-year, wide road to run on. So I just find
but he has an extension that he has to sign, and if he doesn't sign that extension, Raj, and we're talking about a year's worth of, could Luka hit the open market? Report Team X clearing their books for Luka Doncic in 2026, or whenever he would be available. Like there's a reason that the Lakers at least were able to negotiate the trade that they had, and part of the reason there was that Rob told Nico Harrison, we can't talk with this guy right now about his long-term interest in us. Now, to be absolutely clear, the sense that you gather is that Luka is in it for the long haul with the Lakers, but that's one of those things you don't want to take for granted, right?
Absolutely.
Like if I park in San Francisco on one of those really, really steep hills, and I put my car in park, chances are that being in that gear is more than enough for a car on that hill. But anybody smart will turn their wheel to the right, and they'll put the parking brake on, and they'll do everything to make sure that their car stays where they actually want it to stay. Because if it doesn't, you're looking at a disaster. And actually, I think that's another great point to hit on really quickly here, is this notion of Luka's extension and proving to him that you are willing to do whatever it takes to win a championship. And I'm not saying that Luka would walk. He likes playing with Austin, by all accounts, publicly and privately. He likes playing with Rui, by all accounts, publicly and privately. He liked playing with LeBron, publicly and privately. And he liked playing for JJ, publicly and privately. So like all of that, like I'm not here to, worry everybody about what actually might be going on here. But if the Lakers basically go to him and say, all right, we're trying to do everything that we can to build around you, but we really, really, really like Austin, man. Like, sure, we could get you center X, but we really like Rui. He does the LA thing. Like he does, have you seen the pictures? It always, our social media pops off every time Rui goes with one of these, every single time. Can we, are you okay playing with him as a small ball 5 instead? Is that something you're interested in? Like, they can't do that. They can't realistically do that, and they don't intend to.
No, and they didn't do that, right? Right when the Luka trade happened, what did they do? They went out and traded all the assets that they were hoarding for Mark Williams, which obviously didn't work out. But I think that showed a tone and a tenor of aggressiveness that I think that they'll show this, at least I think somewhat show this summer. I'm sure that package will come up and be placed for other centers around the league. So I think there's a middle ground here in terms of, obviously you do have to look for trades, and I've been so clear on that. I just don't think there's an Austin one that makes a lot of sense, but I do think there's a lot of Rui ones that make sense. But I think there is a level of intentionality that you need when trading Rui. There has to be
Yeah,
talent
absolutely.
for talent back, right? Rui is a starter. Like, he's a very good player. He's not a perfect player. He has his warts, he has his faults, but again, going back and watching him play, Anthony, like, this is a guy I think that in the right situation would be very helpful. But the Lakers play him, like you said, he plays the same position as a bunch of other forwards on our team, and he has a defensive role that I don't think is suited for him. Another thing that stood out going back and rewatching all the Minnesota tape was how much, like, you remember things differently when you watching it without emotion, right? So it felt like Anthony Edwards was picking on Rui Hachimura in terms of, like, picking on him on switches. What was really going on was Rui Hachimura was his assigned offensive
Guy.
player.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were putting Rui on Anthony Edwards,
It
and that's
has
not
a
how.
lot of Rui, to your point. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm watching Anthony Edwards bring the ball up against Rui Hachimura, ball pressure in, like, quotes, because Rui can't really move his feet with Anthony Edwards. That's 6'9", 230. I don't really blame him, but again, I think a lot of these guys were in outsized roles. They were also playing heavy doses of minutes. I'm watching Tom Thibodeau not play Jalen Brunson, give Jalen Brunson breaks in a game 4, where they're down 2-1, and just to show kind of how extreme that we let it get to. But yeah, that, like, I think there's a Rui trade that exists out there that makes a lot of sense. Do you trust the front office to get that trade right? I think that's a
Well, if we
I think that's a
don't, then we shouldn't have that front office.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That is very fair. That is very
It's kind of like the guardrails that they've placed on Nico Harrison in Dallas, where it's like, we have told him you are not allowed to trade the first round pick.
right,
You
right,
are not allowed to trade the pick
right,
that can get us Cooper Flag.
right.
And it's like, if I was Nico, I'm like, wait, hold on. There's stuff I can't do. um, and that's kind of saying everything that you need to say about Nico, right? And so, like, we're saying, like, yeah, actually, I don't want to see Rui traded because we don't trust the front office to make that trade. Well, then you need a better front office,
Sure. Yeah, no, most definitely. And, like, Rob's hit on a few, like, again, if like, he's obviously got the Luka deal, which is the most important one, right? We as NBA Twitter, we love to kind of hone in on the really interesting, they traded for cash considerations. Oh my God, how'd they do that type of deals? But the getting the superstar is the most important one. The DFS for D'Angelo Russell, that was a very good trade as well that they just completed. So there's some really good trades, that have gone down recently. But yeah, this is a big summer, and it was smart. I don't know who decided this, Anthony, that put these superstar max extensions after free agency. That's absolutely genius. That is so smart. And
Yeah.
that's absolutely perfect. Luka's doesn't have to sign it until August. So he
Yeah.
gets to just watch on the
Rob
side.
Cook.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Just watching him in the kitchen, like, oh, what type of oil are you using? Like, oh, you got this. Like, sitting in the kitchen watching him. Yeah.
Have you ever
Perfect.
eaten at somebody's house and you didn't quite trust their cooking? Where it's like,
I'm actually good on that. No, I'm good. I'll, just give me the bread.
some salad, bread.
You can keep the meat. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my little brother took a real interest in cooking when he graduated high school, going into what would have been college. He wound up not going to college, and he initially started out, he wanted to be a chef. And he would always be like, all right, I got dinner. I'm on dinner tonight. I got this to everybody. I found this new recipe. And he loved himself some garlic.
Okay.
So like I would come home occasionally and Jen and I would walk into the house and it would just be like, whoa, that's a lot of garlic. And Jen
Yeah.
loves garlic. And even she is like, Andrew, are you sure?
Yeah.
Not being super nice about it, trying to be supportive of this, like, potential career path that he thought he might go on. And you're like, yeah, take a PB&J. But
Some toasted bread. Yeah. Can't screw that up.
take some cereal. You don't add garlic to cereal, right? So anyway, last thing before we hop out of here. This offseason obviously has a ton riding on it, with the backdrop being Luka and the potential final opportunity for LeBron to vie for a championship. Obviously that's lower on fans' priorities than it was going into last season, but still it's a thing. And there's word now that, according to Shams and according to, I believe Jovan also reported this too, that LeBron is expected to opt into his contract.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still holding out just a little bit of hope there that, maybe he doesn't and he takes a bit of a haircut depending on how close the Lakers can get. Because whenever they make a trade, they have to take back less than they send out, or else they're hard capped at the first apron. And so if the Lakers send out enough less and maybe do have an opportunity to use their full mid-level exception, that, maybe just maybe LeBron takes like a haircut here and there. I'm not saying a big one. Those people who thought he was going to take a, whatever it was going to be, a 9 or a 10 figure pay cut, that's not happening. You just got all NBA second team. He shouldn't take one. But maybe just maybe, but regardless, if he does, and then if the Lakers remain hesitant on the kind of offseason that they can have, or remain hesitant on moving their core, and considering their core, LeBron, Luka, Austin, Rui, there are not a ton of levers that they can pull here. So if all of that plays out that way, what would you consider realistic and still productive offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I would expect LeBron to opt into his deal.
I think they have to operate that way.
Yeah, so I think they'll. What's interesting to me, Anthony, is how do you, I guess, operate without knowing if it's LeBron's last year or not? Like, to me, that changes a lot of the calculation, right? If this is LeBron's last year, then that probably changes a couple of the moves you're making.
I wrote about this with Rui, Raj. They could go from an abundance of fours to now your 4 rotation is Luka and an old Dorian Finney-Smith.
Exactly, right? And I think that's why also they're kind of hugging on to Rui as well, because they don't know is this LeBron's last year or not. And if you lose him as a forward, it kind of hurts you in other areas. So I think that's number one. Number two, I think this team had clear holes, and like, to me, when you're watching the playoffs and you're watching these other teams, I think it's really clear they needed a big man and they need one more defensive athletic player, whether that comes from the guard, from the wing, wherever it is. They need a player that can ball pressure, that can just give other teams issues on the defensive end. I think Gabe Vincent played this role for us this year, but he's just too small to be impactful in that way. Jordan Goodwin, that's why he earned the minutes he did, because he's kind of in that tier of player, but you want a player that's better than that. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is like the pipe dream, but again, to your point, LeBron's not. I think he would have to take like $15 million less, Anthony, for them to open up the full MLE, which LeBron's
that's where it would take. It would take, sending out considerably more money for it to even become a conversation, right? Like that happens. That has to happen first, or there would have to be a path to doing that first before LeBron makes that.
Yeah, and again, I just don't see LeBron forking up that much. Like, he may give up a little bit to open up the taxpayer mid-level, which is like $5 million. So you can kind of look at the tier of players that gets you into. But I think the hope is that you have a couple of ring chasers that come over. You have you hit on some
I
of your
think you have to
minimum
do some work
signings.
if you're going to get ring chasers.
Sure,
Lakers
but you'd
aren't winning a
hope.
ring.
Well, I'm saying if you have Luka, LeBron, and you get a few more pieces that make sense, then you can kind of get into the ring chaser calculation. Obviously, OKC would lead that, but I, again, there's moves to be made. Anthony, the Lakers played 5 guys in the playoffs,
Yeah.
which means like that's
If
what
you trade
8.
one of them.
Yeah. Well, no, what I was saying is like you have 8
Yeah.
guys that you fully feel are, you can easily move without any question that your coach had zero trust in. You wrote about Jackson Hayes likely not returning because
I don't know
of
why that was. I think it's because it's May 28th
sure.
as to why that's been such big news and my mentions have been such a tire fire the last 24 hours. But
I think
no,
it's also
nobody
that
should be
like it,
surprised.
not surprised, but if you look at the landscape, like getting a big that's better than Jackson Hayes on the minimum for an 82 game grind.
But you
Tough to
have to
find.
ask, like, will Jackson want to go from starting last year to being the third string this year?
Sure.
And again, the Lakers didn't cut him after that video came out, but it's
Sure.
a pretty tough sell to people to be like, yeah, we saw the video. Now we want to bring him back for more when you're talking about a third string center. Like,
Yeah.
I don't see it. I'd be pretty disappointed if they did.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, you're right. He's most likely gone, but I think that's why the kind of conversation was what it was online. But yeah, you're starting from zero in terms of big man. So you got to go out and fill a big man rotation this summer while also getting a rotation that makes sense of 7, 8 guys. There's a lot of work to do, but my point with that was we have a lot of players that like you obviously feel aren't too important to your team because they did not play at
Yeah.
all. So that's where you can kind of flip the roster and hopefully bring in a bunch of guys along with the core to bring it back around that you can build on for next season.
Yeah. Yeah. The issue there is that if you're just trading guys for the contract, then you have to attach stuff to them. Whereas if you
Yeah.
trade an actual good NBA player, you may not have to attach because and look, this is part of the internal debate. Do you is it worth moving Rui, or would you rather move the first rounder? Would you rather hold on to the first rounder so that eventually you can package it with other first rounders that become more available over the next few years for whatever second best player that you want to play with Luka? And look, I know Lakers fans would be pretty disappointed in it, and a good part of me would be pretty disappointed in it too. But if the Lakers basically did the math and said, you know what, we're gonna run a version of this team back. We'll trade expirings and maybe Dalton for and maybe a pick swap or something like that for a better starting center. We'll you know do what we can to improve the athleticism on the roster as well. You use that taxpayer mid level on the on or the mini mid level on another center there to add more depth, and we'll just kind of see what this team looks like with organic improvement and a couple improvements elsewhere on the roster, and keep the powder dry just in case this is LeBron's final season, and you now all of a sudden have to go out and get Luka's second best player. If that's communicated well, and if that's something Luka fully understands, and that is an actual plan that the Lakers have here moving forward, not like the kick the can down the road plan that they had with LeBron and Anthony Davis, then I think there's a world in which I would accept that as an outcome to this offseason.
Yeah.
But if the explanation for trading or for not trading Austin or Rui was like, well, we couldn't get an all NBA player for those guys, I don't know, man. Like, neither of those guys are going to be all NBA players. And even if we're talking about Austin as a potential all-star, he's probably a one-time all-star. I think Nazar Muhammad made a one-time all-star. There are some centers back in the day that made one
Okay.
all-star game that are just hilarious. And if Austin joins that unceremonious club of one-time All-Stars, and the reason that the Lakers didn't trade him is because they wanted a multi-time All-Star back, it's like, I don't know. And now all of a sudden he's on the books. There just has to be a plan, Raj. Like, that's all I
Sure.
keep on coming back. I talked to Pete about it. I talked to Trevor about it. We've talked about this in the past. I want to see Rob Pelinka's actual vision for a basketball team here, not whatever moves he has to make to appease whoever is in charge of keeping him employed. I want to see an actual plan from the president of basketball operations and general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers to just be like, all right, this is what I believe in. This is how I think you build around Luka Doncic. This is the kind of player. If we are, fully banking on Luka and Austin and maybe even Rui moving forward, fine. This is what it takes to surround those guys, build a roster around that core, to build. But it can't just be this like ho hum. We'll see.
And a member of the core that we haven't talked about at all this show is JJ Redick, right? He's part of this.
Yeah.
He's not a player, but I think he's inserted into the core of the principles that this team will go forward on. And that's why I think obviously the Lakers showed their cards a little bit on this move, but I think the Mark Williams kind of move was so enlightening because it kind of told you what they were looking for, right? Young center, athletic, biggest wingspan, in the league, over Wembanyama even, lob threat for Luka Doncic, and Young on a rookie scale contract, I believe. He's still like when you traded for him. So I think that's what they're looking for, a center that Luka can build with instead of just going and getting a center that's already making $30 million or whatever it is, and you're unsure on the fit. And like just my prediction, I think Luka, Austin, LeBron are probably the three guys that they look at and go, all right, this is who we're kind of leaning on, and let's build a team for next season with LeBron that can work on those guys' strengths. And then at the deadline, reassess what the team looks like. Get a full training camp in with JJ and this new core of players and see what it is from there. But that's to me the plan. Like that's what I would predict the plan is. Obviously, things can change, trades can come up, stars can request out, and that changes kind of the plan as well. But that's how I would kind of see it playing out this season. And like JJ is gonna have a full off season with Rob. I think he got signed right before or right after free agency. I can't remember last season, but he has a full summer now with Rob to kind of go through players, and I like that guy, don't like that guy, I would never play that guy, stuff like that you can kind of have conversations with. And hopefully Luka's in the room or on Zoom during those calls, and you can have like everybody rowing in the same direction.
We'll see. We'll see what this looks like. As always, Raj, over the course of the show, you seem to feel worse and worse.
Man, I've been battling a flu that. So it's funny. This always hits me like right before like end of June. That like I go to Vegas a bunch in July, summer league and other things. But so I'm kind of happy that it hits like here.
Now.
So now I'll have So just that yearly flu that hits. But yeah, I was kind of dying in the middle of there a little bit. I was like coughing.
I look over and you're like.
Yeah.
All right, I'll talk a little longer. But no, thank you very much, Raj, for hopping on. As always, really fun. Check out his work on silverscreenandroll.com. He's written some really good stuff so far this offseason. Some depressing stuff when he talked about Vando, but still good, none the same, or all the same. And let's see, tomorrow is Thursday. Yeah. So tomorrow the plan is for Harrison and I to have probably some version of this same conversation too. And then Pete and I will be on, I believe, on Friday. So check out or hit that subscribe button and make sure you don't miss any of that stuff. Keep an eye out or an ear out on the RSS feed for the lowdown tonight. And until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Raj Chapalu. This has been the Lakers Lounge. Have a great rest of your evening. Make somebody else's, and I'll talk to you whenever I talk to you.
Bye, everyone.